Hey, welcome back to the Dr. Taylor Marshall podcast. We're going to talk about today, did Christians help carry Trump-Vance over to the finish line, including also the Senate, the House? I'm here with the Posobiec brothers, the Polish brothers. We got Jack Poso. We got Kev Poso. They got rosaries. They're packing. Kev's got my favorite hat on. I tried to find that hat. $85 on eBay, Kevin.
Oh, really?
If you want that American
you found it for 85. Because I got this one for him for his birthday. And let me tell you something. It was not 85. It was I can confirm, by the way, that I just got back. I was at Mar-a-Lago for a little bit earlier today, and I will just say that Saint Michael the Archangel was there firmly ensconced in Mar-a-Lago as the new government is being put together as we speak right now.
I think we need a statue of big old statue of St. Michael the Archangel at Mar-a-Lago, either out by the pool or in the opening when you first come in right there in the
I might be able to I'll put in a pitch for that. I
think it would be amazing. And or maybe Our Lady Guadalupe. President Trump seems to have some affinity to that.
You do both.
Why not both? More is more.
You put them both in. No, you've got Saint, because he invoked, think of it. He invoked Saint Michael the Archangel and Our Lady of Guadalupe, and then won the largest share of Catholic votes. And I looked this up since 1984 for a Republican, since 1984 or 1972 with Nixon, and both of which were the two landslide elections. So 72, the Nixon landslide, 49 states, and then 84, which, by the way, also was 49 states with Ronald Reagan. But this is the first time, certainly, that we've ever seen. I mean, so many firsts for this election. I mean, you can't even begin to talk about it. But it's, just to answer the very initial question that you had there, were Christians the deciding factor? Yes, obviously. And I know there was an individual who did a survey and thought that evangelicals wouldn't come out. I don't think that's true. I think they did end up showing up, and they showed up big. And Protestants came out the same way that they normally do. But the biggest swing that you saw, particularly in the 7 swing states, was among Catholics. And this massive Catholic swing that we saw away from the Democrats, a huge Catholic rejection, almost 20 points in some areas, rejection of Kamala Harris, rejection of everything that the Democrats and their government currently in power has done to Catholics, and traditional Catholics in particular, Latin Mass Catholics, Rosary Catholics in particular. This wasn't just a preference. This was a repudiation, an absolute repudiation.
And how much do you think this relates to Kamala skipping the Al Smith dinner and then putting out her little cheesy SNL skit, Gretchen with her Dorito Eucharist, Jesus is Lord, you're at the wrong rally? I mean, do you think Kamala pushed people even further in the 9th hour, or were people already decided Kamala's anti-Christian, I'm done?
I think it did definitely put him over the edge. That's where the social media factor comes in. It's like the Doritos thing. It was so clear, so apparent. And then the Al Smith dinner was just ridiculous. I mean, I thought
she started from every candidate starts with a pretense. And the pretense that, so Donald Trump comes in and he's a Fifth Avenue billionaire from New York City. Kamala Harris came in, and part of her pretense, particularly when it came to Catholics, I go all the way back to 2018, which I think was the first time she really crossed my radar in terms of, going viral or doing something on social media. And it was her rebuking a judicial nominee for being a member of the Knights of Columbus. This was, and I mean, again, I'm a Knight of Columbus, by the way. And, the guys who hand out your coffee and donuts, and, the usher helps you find a seat when, you show up and you got the kids, and, to go after guys with the blood drives and bring in mulch to folks who need it at their homes, they can't carry it. Like, that's an extremist organization, please. I mean, if those guys are extremists, we're all extremists at that point. And the fact that she went after the Knights of Columbus the way that she did just set the stage for me to say, wait a minute, this isn't about the Knights of Columbus. She actually has a problem with Catholics. And by the way, I will add to that because I got another data point out, which I would have loved to have had this piece of information during the election. But Dr. Marshall, do you know Joe Kent? He was the guy, he ran in Washington State. He was like he was a veteran, Green Beret, and his wife actually died overseas. Did you watching that race at all?
No, I don't know that
No,
one.
so he was out there. It was very, very, very close. Total heartbreaker. Hope he gets, by the way, position in the Trump DOD. I think he'd just be a shoo-in for a number of positions. Anyway, the person he was running against was named what's her first name? I forgot her first name now. It's Glusenkamp Perez is her last name, and she mentioned this story that she was at a Christmas party with Kamala Harris, and this is southern Washington State, just north of Portland, so you can probably guess the politics. And it's where the liberals who work in Portland live because they don't want to actually have to live in Portland under Democrat policies. And she mentioned she was at a Christmas party. This is a Democrat, by the way, Democrat congresswoman says that, is it Heidi or Helen? One of those, where she says that she's with Kamala Harris and she was going to meet with her and talks about the fact that there was an artificial tree there. It's an artificial tree. I don't know if it's in the White House or not. And she says to Kamala Harris, as you know, just by way of small talk, oh, by the way, do you know that we grow these in my district back up in Washington State? And anyone who's been to the Seattle, Tacoma area knows there's just, I mean, there's pine trees everywhere. It's the whole state is covered in pine trees. And she said that Kamala Harris rolled her eyes, laughed, and walked away when she talked about having a real Christmas tree. And, you know, I mean, as a representative, you want to talk up the businesses of your state. I get that. But she rolled her eyes at the idea of having a real Christmas tree as if that was something that mattered. So piece of information that just came out, you know, and it speaks to the autopsy of the Kamala campaign, but it's very clear that the mistreatment of Christians, which somehow ratcheted up during the election, just the complete mistreatment towards the Christians and all Christians, by the way, not just Catholics, but Christians in general and Catholics specifically, with which, as Kevin just noted, skipping the Al Smith dinner, the absolute mockery of the Dorito Eucharist, which is just something that, I mean, I just want to grab the crucifix and head straight for Michigan when I saw that. When I even think about that video, it just makes my skin crawl. Like literally skin crawl.
When your career's failing, that's like the go-to playbook. That's all they have is like just make fun of Christ. If anything, she could have like said some kind of support for St. Michael or Our Lady of Guadalupe, just as Biden has done, like celebrate each holiday.
But Biden is sort of like that name only Catholic, right? And that's why it works for him.
Also backfired for him.
But so this is the issue though that the Democrats have in their party is that, and James Carville right now, his videos are phenomenal this past week because he's just sitting there. By the way, this is like it's almost like his personal, I don't know, perhaps if this is his purgatory or his penance, that he has to sit and know all the right moves that they should be making, but nobody listens to him anymore. Yeah. He said, "Stop talking about that. What are you doing? You got to ask that question about splitting up with Joe Biden. It was a softball and you swung and you missed. You missed it by 4 feet. You missed it by 4 feet, Kamala Harris." And he's just sitting there and he's just like pulling his brains out. He said, "I know, I wish I was a young man and you would listen to me, but you don't listen to old James no more." And he's just sitting in his couch making these videos. They're fantastic because he gets it. It's about the economy. It's about the fact that butter costs $7 a bar, $7 for a stick of butter. And they don't even get this. They're so out of touch. And then you're attacking Christians, the largest faith group in the country, and Catholics, who are the largest faith in the country. And it's ridiculous. It's just dumb politics. It's just really dumb politics. And I say this not as a Catholic. I just say that as with my, sort of political operative hat on. Why would you're supposed, when you make the close, you're supposed to be bringing more people in. So you're supposed to be widening your aperture, bringing people in to your coalition. So you should be reaching out to Catholics. Show me one high-level Catholic that real Catholic that came out and gave her an endorsement or an endorsement that she worked for. There's none.
None.
There's
None.
nothing. There's
None.
absolutely, she didn't even try. And then, as Kevin has outlined, and if you have outlined, it almost seemed like she was working against the Catholic vote. And, you know, Josh Shapiro, she wanted to put him on the ticket, and this guy just hates Catholics. This guy just completely hates Catholics.
Right.
I mean, he's constantly antagonizing the church. He's constantly antagonizing the faith in Pennsylvania. And so, you know, just a huge repudiation of so many of these things. And what can I say? You know, so Kevin and I, we took it upon ourselves, you even more than me, where every single Sunday through the month of, I guess, the end of September and then through October, we were hitting Latin masses all over the state, just driving up and down. And we would use the, you know, that one website, I think it's just latinmass.com.
Yeah.
And we would look up where a Latin mass was in our, wherever we were, you know, Pittsburgh or in Scranton or in the Philadelphia area. And we would go to the services, and you see there are hundreds of people, they're spilling out of the aisles everywhere. And, you know, we're chasing ballots, letting people know they can vote early.
Yeah.
And everybody was just coming up to us saying, she can't be president. She
Yeah.
can't be president. We can't
Yeah.
let her get in there. Because, you know, people certainly have, you know, Donald Trump isn't exactly the most Catholic person in the world or something like that, even though I would say that he did make huge overtures to the Catholics during this campaign in ways that we've never
more
seen.
than any other president, more than Biden, who says he's Catholic.
No, more than Biden.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, but there was a sense of, there was this palpable sense when we talked to people of an existential issue that people actually thought when we talked to, and just Pennsylvania, that was really where we focused our, and where we're from, but it almost felt like they existentially thought that if she becomes president, that the Latin Mass and traditional Catholicism will be shut down throughout the United States.
It was certainly a stepping stone. I mean, we're already facing it from Rome in the dicastery.
Well, and
But,
you guys in Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler, Texas. I mean, there was 5-6 Latin masses are all being squeezed down to one. You know, Bishop Strickland was taken out. They got the Bishop of Austin overseeing. He's shutting this stuff down. It's like, why are you meddling? It's not even your diocese. But we also saw interference in traditional Latin mass communities with the FBI.
Yes.
Fortunately, Holly went after them. But yeah, I think a lot of traditional Catholics, I think a lot of evangelicals, a lot of pro-lifers were thinking, under 4 years of Kamala, what does it look like for us? And I want to get your take. I want to circle back to the Catholic.
Completely. I mean, she would have let Merrick Garland go off the chain. Yeah. She would have. And look, Doug Mackey, who's a friend of mine, and we just had him on the show today. I mean, he was arrested and his home was raided for making a meme in 2016. A meme, just a meme that he posted to his own personal account. He wasn't texting people like this Charlotte Clymer individual was doing, or Jimmy Kimmel saying Republicans vote Thursday. He posted a meme to his personal account. Yeah. They arrested him. Who, by the way, is a Catholic convert, Doug Mackey, for folks who don't know that. And he, because he doesn't like when I say this, we're going to say it because it's important. He missed the birth of his first child because he was forced to be in court by the Biden administration. He missed the birth of his first child because of this. So if they're willing to do that now, imagine what they would be willing to do if Merrick Garland was given full power. And that's what I really think a lot of Catholics were against that, and realized that we will not survive another 4 years of this.
Yeah. I want to get both of y'all's take on Catholics as a swing vote. You know, traditionally, going back even to the late 1800s, Catholics started aligning with the Democrat Party. We've seen since Reagan that breaking off, and there's been a fight every election who's going to get those Catholic votes. And then I also want to get your take on the Latino bros, who are mostly Catholic as well. Latino men shifting over to Trump, to Republican, and all that. Before we do, though, I want to just do a quick read for today's sponsor, and that is Ready Pantry. You know, we've got a lot of crises. We've got hurricanes. We've got potential wars, grid collapses. Fortunately, we got through the election with no problems, but many people don't have enough food on hand to make it 3 days. In fact, 78% of Americans don't have enough food to last for a 3-day emergency. And so I want to recommend to you our today's sponsors, that is Ready Pantry, and they give you shelf-stable food that has a 25-year shelf life, over 2 decades. It's food storage, delicious food, freeze-dried. You've got breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, snacks, and it's an American-based company with American products sourced in the United States of America. We have Ready Pantry at home. It tastes great, real ingredients. It's for your family, and they have different options. They have a 72-hour pack, a 1 week, a 1 month. And so I want to encourage you to go over to readypantry.com/Taylor. Use promo code Taylor, and you'll get an additional 10% off. And look at those products. You got 3 month, 6 month, 1 year. Figure out what's best for your family. So go to readypantry.com/Taylor. Use promo code Taylor. You can also use the link in the show note or in the pinned comment. Readypantry.com, promo code Taylor. All right, back with the Poso Bros. Poso Bros. Y'all need to brand that, you know?
It's kind of a
Poso
good
Bros.
brand, isn't it? The Poso Bros, in case you don't know.
There you go.
Oh,
In
is
case,
it?
no, in case you don't knows.
In case you don't knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, Poso Bros. I was so Kevin
Straight out of
here.
Philly.
Kevin here got to meet Elon Musk for the first time a couple of days ago. Oh yes, but
I did.
But I was joking. I said, so Kev, let me get this straight. In 5 days, you went from the bowels of Eagles jail when the Eagles were playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we got sent to Eagles jail. That's a long story. And from there to going to Mar-a-Lago and shaking hands with Elon Musk in 5 days. I said that to my wife. I said that to Tanya Tay. She goes, "It's the American dream."
It is. It is. So let's talk. I want to talk about Latino Bros, but since we're talking about Elon, what's the deal with Elon? I mean, he seemed to have been a progressive, a liberal. Is it because of one of his children, as he said, getting the mind virus? Is it because they attacked him? Like, how did they flip Elon to be MAGA Trump Republican?
Well, I want to say real quick too, Taylor, along the trail, I attended a lot of his town halls, and especially in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And then Allentown.
You were in all of them. I
was at all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, actually. But there was a group of Christian men that would ask him questions directly about the faith and if he supports Jesus Christ and his teaching.
That was at Lancaster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they
did.
sent Elon down to Lancaster, and rather than ask questions, the guys in Lancaster, PA, just started walking up and quoting the Bible to him, and they said, "Elon, what do you think about this? Elon, what do you think about Corinthians? Elon, what do you think?" That's amazing.
And he said, "Yeah, I'm on board. I agree.
We got a Christ pill. We got a Christ pill, Elon Musk.
We got to put him in check. That's the First Amendment, ain't it?
That's right.
So don't forget.
Wow. Yeah, I've
religion.
seen an interview with Elon in which he says that he's not against Christ and he admires his teaching, but he doesn't consider himself a Christian.
It. That's what Kevin was there.
That was it.
Kevin was sitting right next to it. Kevin was literally sitting in the front row when he said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he strongly believes in forgiveness as well, and then in turning the other cheek. And those were the two main points, because he's such a thinker that like he had to elaborate on stage, like on the spot. But yes,
so it seems to be
have it all filmed.
What it sounds to me like he's at the spot where, you know, Jesus was a great teacher, and we should listen to the teachings of Jesus. Now, I think Joe Rogan has said some things that are kind of along those lines. I know you have a great video about the responses to Joe Rogan, but it's sort of it's the teachings of Jesus without the divinity of Christ just yet. But it seems like he's on the right path.
Yeah, and also, you know, the one that comes to mind is Jordan Peterson. He talks a lot about the cross, the crucifix, Jesus dying, and you never really hear Jordan go to resurrection, third day, rose again. Like, so it's. I think they're putting their feelers out, and they're feeling the truth, and they're perhaps identifying with the humanity of Christ and the crucifixion of Christ. But we got to get to the deity of Christ and the resurrection of Christ, and then from there, you move on to the Eucharist and the fullness and all that. So, yeah, everybody out there, you should be praying for the conversion of Constantines. I guarantee you there were millions of Christians in the beginning of the 4th century who never imagined that Constantine would start building churches and professing Christ. And it happened. So you never know what God is going to do.
I just figured it out. I think I just figured out Kevin.
What?
We got to give Elon a rosary.
We do.
Yes.
Oh, we gotta
We're
give
here.
We got to give him a rosary. So this is what we were doing all year. I was like the Johnny Appleseed of rosaries. The
Yep.
two of us were. Is that we started with Russell Brand.
Yes.
Yep.
And then we see he's just gone on fire. And then we've Tucker Carlson.
That's right. We taught him the St.
and
Michael prayer.
We taught Russell Brand the St. Michael prayer. Then we gave one to Tucker Carlson
And
now-
RFK.
and then we gave one to RFK. Now RFK, he's already Catholic.
He was.
Right.
He is.
And
I've
then
heard
we gave one to
RFK
Alex Jones
say,
as well.
as a kid, their family prayed the rosary every night. I've heard RFK say that.
I buy that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, so you were asking about that.
He was just doing campaign videos with the St. Francis of Assisi prayer.
Yeah, he's very devoted to St.
Yeah.
Francis because
Still.
of nature. I think
That was a month ago.
is something that's very, very close to him. So he's very devoted to following the teachings of St. Francis. Whereas, Steve Bannon, of course, also a Catholic, always talks about St. Augustine. But what's interesting about when you mention RFK, so that gets into the Kennedys, right? And the Kennedys, so driving it back to the politics of it, that the Kennedy family was associated with the previous iteration of the Democrat Party. And so
Right.
because the Kennedys were Democrats, because a lot of this, by the way, was ethnic in a sense, because you had so many Irish, so many Italians, Polish in our case, coming over. And what are Irish, Italians, and Polish? We're predominantly Catholic. So the Ellis Islanders come over, and the Democrat Party says, oh, here's a bunch of people, we can get their votes. Hey, vote for Democrat because Democrats are for you. So they all go in originally with FDR. That's where you get the New Deal.
Yep.
Then that comes forward. Then JFK comes up in 1960. And there were a couple issues with the 1960 elections, particularly when it comes to the city of Chicago and Northern Illinois. And we could talk about that maybe at some other time. But point being is Kennedy was it was almost synonymous. Kennedy meant Democrat, meant Catholic. It was all one thing. And so to be a Republican, for Catholics to support a Republican, it was almost anathema. So it was an identity issue. This is why, by the way, you'll see in New England that you'll find these deep pockets of Catholics, and they're all Democrats, and they've all got pictures of JFK up in their homes. It's cultural, it's ethnic, it's all of that tied together. And so what Trump was able to do was to say, look, what are these Democrats doing for you? And the fact that he got a Kennedy, right? The fact that he got a Kennedy for the first time to endorse him, it essentially gave permission, I think, for a lot of those old school Democrats to say it's okay to vote for Trump, who is also a guy who's not a traditional Republican. And so this way, with the cultural and the ethnic and the historic background of all of it, it gave a lot of Catholics, I think, who are probably, on the fence, it gave them the ability to come over. Not to mention, by the way, all of the positive things that RFK does stand for, like obviously making America healthy again, and the declassification project that he's a huge part of. And we've got by the way, I've got to get him a copy of the book, because we did the whole book on Trump's assassination, Bulletproof, and got to get RFK a copy of that as the blueprint for the investigation to go forward. And I'll just add, to get back to your question about Hispanic men, it's pretty simple to me that if you look at the history of the Spanish-speaking world, Hispanic men tend to support strong leaders. You see this across the Spanish-speaking world, from Spain to South America to Mexico to Cuba. They want a strong leader. They do not support weakness. And Kamala Harris is and was very weak.
Yep.
Very weak. She was constantly complaining. She never had any issues. She never wanted to take accountability for anything. And she always looked very, very weak, even to the point where she wouldn't come out and simply blame Joe Biden for all the problems in America, which I said to President Trump a couple of days before the election. I said, I happened to see him at an event, and I said, Mr. President, it would be really the smartest thing she could do right now is to start blaming Afghanistan on Joe Biden and inflation on Joe Biden and the border on Joe. Just blame and say, I wanted to fix these things, but he wouldn't let me. And Trump said, yeah, that would be smart, but she isn't.
That's right. Do you think
it's
the
true?
Latino?
And I think, and I think that a lot of the Latino, that's a huge part of your Catholic vote now too.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see, what was Latino men, was it 52 or 54% Trump?
I think it may have been 54.
Yeah, I think it was 54.
Depending
To see
which, some of
and
the exit polls
Latino
have it
women
different.
moving towards Trump, the Democrats have to be thinking, oh no, these are Catholic people coming from Mexico mostly. They're coming to America looking for a new life, some of them legally, most of them illegally. But the ones who are legal and who have citizenship, they're trending red.
Mhm.
That's
They're trending
got
red because of the strong presence of Trump. And I mean, it's just simple. Like we have him, and then we have Kamala, and they're just not Americanized, quote unquote. Like the politics, her campaign had nothing good to say about Catholics. It was total mockery, total like cutting down against them, and then what, like reproductive rights, you
Right.
know, but that they're not even about that to begin with. They don't like the flattery. I've met plenty of Latino Cubans. I'm friends with you. I was just at a Cuban wedding earlier this year. My good friend, he's a fisherman, and like they're no nonsense people, and you can't really flatter them that well. You can't butter them up like that. And they see Trump and they understand he's a businessman and all his accomplishments. And that kind of speaks towards like the swing too, is like a lot of the Latin mass community that I've come across in Pennsylvania. They're all just like very, very based and not so like outspoken, but they understand what Trump has done and what Kamala hasn't and what's at risk. So a lot of my conversations have been more towards just getting people to vote, and they say, oh, I want to sit it out
the turnout.
because they get into the scrupulosity of the man.
Wait, but Kevin, do you remember we went to the Polish Mass too? So
Oh
in
yeah.
Philadelphia, just outside Philadelphia in Doylestown, we have Our Lady of Czestochowa.
Yeah,
And
I've
Our
been
Lady
there a
of
couple times.
Czestochowa, or which I know you have.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And is an incredible shrine for Poles. So Our Lady of Czestochowa for Poland is like what Our Lady of Guadalupe is for Mexico. And you'll get Polish tourists who come in all the time. The buses come off from all over, and they stop off, and people make pilgrimages to it. And for us, because we grew up in the area, it was just whenever my dad wanted to go to the Polish festival, whenever they had it on or something, we would go on and we would do that. And so we had this reporter who came up, the European reporter who came up and said, well, Kamala Harris is campaigning for Polish Americans' vote. And she said, you guys are a couple of Polish Americans from Pennsylvania. And she mentioned this at the debate. She said, there's 800,000 Polish Americans in Pennsylvania or something. And I said, okay, well, why should I vote for Kamala Harris? She said, because she supports the war in Ukraine. And I remember looking at her, I'm like,
That was her first point.
and I
Yeah.
was like, have
Right.
you actually talked to anyone here? Because that's not something that Polish Catholics in Pennsylvania
Right.
just it's
Top
it's
of the
nowhere
list for
near
the
our
Catholic
list.
vote.
It's nowhere
Yeah.
near our list. And we don't support war in general. And the idea, this was this crazy narrative that she tried to push it at the debate. She tried to push it in the media. And then the media came down and was at the Polish Mass that we went to chase ballots and started interviewing us. And we tried to set them straight, but I don't think they listened.
No, it was totally
I said,
one-sided.
look, you know what the Polish people care about? We care about communism. Communism that tries to take this away
Boy.
from us. Because all Polish people want to do is go to mass, pray the rosary, and make babies.
That's right.
That is what the
Love
Polish
it.
and built.
Almost similar to the Latino community too.
That's all we want to do is you leave us alone. That's what we're going to do. And she is getting in the way of that.
Yep. And so it's interesting when you think about the Latinos in the South, and then you think of these states that sometimes go red, swing states, very much set up with the unions. And, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, all those states right in through there that are so critical and are so swingy, that Catholic pressure is immense. And I mean, if you were advising, maybe we shouldn't even talk about this, if you were advising Democrats, how can they ever get them back? Because it seems like they've pushed them all the way out into the street. Is there any way to get them back?
Here's the interesting piece is that I'm sure if they could sit down and talk to James Carville and he would explain you a million ways to get them back. The problem the Democrats have isn't necessarily education on how to obviously be normal and welcoming towards people of faith, to stop pushing these radical movements. But the issue the Democrats have is all their money is locked up in the radical left, because all the DEI programs, all the LGBT programs, all the things that they have created through their institutional control of so much of the infrastructure in the United States today, so many nodes and institutions of power, that's where all their money is locked up. So if their money is locked up in the far left, it's going to be very hard for them to pull back to the middle, even though you got guys like John Fetterman, who went on Joe Rogan a couple of days before the election, who is our senator, by the way, our other senator, Frank and Fetterman, we call him. And that he explained that you are going to lose. And here's why. It's because you guys can't campaign to the middle, and because you're taking all this money from these massive far left groups. And so, yeah, I think if all you have to do is go back to the middle, stop the persecution of Catholics, stop going, and it's not just that they don't stand with their values, they are actively working against our values and against our faith.
Yeah,
to make it so it's almost illegal to be Catholic in America.
Yeah, maybe start your next campaign not as a priority of having women's reproductive rights and having women like Megan Thee Stallion twerk on stage in front of the whole audience.
You know, she got $5 million for that.
Yeah,
they paid Megan Thee Stallion $5 million to do the twerking on stage.
Catholic vote.
And then Beyonce, they paid. By the way, this is the fire we're finding out. They had 10 million. She didn't even perform a song. We're realizing the Kamala campaign was a money laundering operation for high-level celebrities, leftists.
There it is.
It was a pyramid scheme. It is the Fire Festival of politics. And by the way, so you know that Kevin and I, we went to the very last concert of Kamala Harris. We put on our white dudes for Kamala Harris hats
that wasn't me.
in Philadelphia. And what was so strange to me is, politically speaking, is, look, if you're in the city of Philadelphia, you might want to put on some hip hop, right? You might want to put on some hip hop, get out all the guys. We know Barack Obama was running around saying, where's the black vote? All the black men need to come out, and the brothers need to support the sister, right? That's what he kept saying. The brothers need to support the sister. But they didn't come out. But what was so interesting to me was I couldn't understand. At first, I didn't get it. Why was it then that the entire Kev, who performed at that concert?
What was it? Ricky Martin?
Ricky Martin? You know, like what? Ricky Martin.
When was the last time we heard of him?
That's the last time Living La Vida, Ricky.
Macarena.
Lady Gaga was a performer. Oprah Winfrey was there as a speaker. So clearly, I said, wait a minute, this concert is not designed for Black Americans. This is a concert that's designed for single, white, older women.
Right.
And Kevin, about
you mean like Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift, who wasn't there, but
Lady Gaga.
But Kevin, Kevin, when we saw the crowd that was in the line when we were there, wasn't that like, I would say 40-50% was single white women.
It was. I didn't see many kids. I didn't see any kids when we were in where were we? Muhlenberg College either.
No. They
were still in masks.
And so what she was trying to do was, she had realized, politically speaking, she had realized that she had lost the urban black vote, or at least lost a significant portion of it to help affect the election. And so what she was trying to do was replace the urban black vote with the suburban single female vote, particularly among older females, and then use the strategy of talking about abortion and, you know, these artists that would be supportive of that to drive up their vote. The problem is she's never had the numbers, because what she did was she narrowed the aperture of her appeal rather than expanding it. So if you go look at the exit polls, one of the most, a lot of people have been talking about the racial differences, the religious differences. One of the most interesting ones that I've seen, nugget wise, and the youth vote, I mean, it's unbelievable, the youth vote, the amount of youth. President Trump winning, I think 50% overall among youth, shifting young women 10 points to the right, dominating with young men, and for all the reasons that I think we all know at this point. He ran as a Chad. It's as simple as that. It was the Chads versus the Betas. And but if you look at it by marriage rate, this I think, and certainly for your audience, I think I know it's very important for the Dr. Taylor Marshall audience, is that Trump wins among married men, among married women, and among unmarried men. If you go by marriage rate, but Then he wins unmarried women by 20 points.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So what Kamala was
Wow.
trying to do was they were sitting there saying, okay, this is the one group that we have
Right.
single unmarried women, and we are going to try to drive that number up so much and make our entire campaign pander directly to them, and then split the country against sort of married versus unmarried women and hope that that's going to overcome it. I mean, it's one of the dumbest strategic decisions I've ever seen made. I've no idea what they were thinking in terms of their table strategy here, politically speaking, because again, you are supposed to amplify. You're supposed to widen your appeal when you're in a general election. But again, for someone who is just a complete narcissist, for someone who is totally committed ideologically the way she was, to doubling down on the persecution of the church, doubling down. So from that perspective, now you can understand this is why she was attacking the Catholic Church, something that her people thought was a positive,
Right.
because she's pandering so much to one specific group.
Right. And it failed. And you see, I thought it was amazing.
Failure.
Native Americans coming out for Trump.
Native Americans with
Wow.
the single largest group, 66 to 33%, 2/3. That honestly, I don't have an explanation for that yet. Other than I'll simply say this. I will simply say this. I'll go back to it. Butter costs $7 a stick right now. Okay.
Yeah.
That it's as simple as that. You really don't have to understand much more beyond the election to understand when everything costs too much and people can't afford to eat, when people can't afford to have a house over their heads. And if you're a Native American stuck on one of those reservations, living under the ridiculous regulations and full-on socialist regulations that they imprint on these reservations, which the whole system should just be completely gutted and done away with, frankly speaking. And you sit there and you see what she's done for illegal aliens who have just come here when your family's been here for 40,000 years or something, and they're bending over backwards because some Indios from Guatemala have just crossed the border. Yeah, that might make me want to vote for Donald J. Trump too.
100%. So yeah, we got the Native Americans, white men and white women coming out real strong. I know we had White Boy Summer. I was hosting White Dad Summer. It was awesome. And,
Kevin, wait. Kevin was in the New York Times for White Boy Summer.
Were you on the New York Times?
Against Joy Reid, I sure was.
In the New York Times, yes, sir.
Well, I wanted to speak too, as well as like Kamala ran for more like the instant gratification rather than delayed gratification. If you break down those stats, like $7 for a stick of butter might not mean too much if you're single. It's like, okay, I have to figure that in and work my budget. But if you got kids, like they don't have kids, if you got a family to plan for, then it's like maybe 3 or 4 sticks of butter you gotta
that's all their strategy. Yeah, but so what we strategically did, and if you look at some of the moves that we made this year, which if you put them all together, in a vacuum, if you look at them all separately, they might not make sense. But, why did we come out against Taylor Swift all the way back in February when the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl?
Right.
Why was it that in the summertime, we went up there at the massive rally in Detroit and Kevin had the huge boom, White Boy Summer pink flag, and we're throwing the hats out with the Pit Vipers. Media loses their minds. Media goes completely insane, screaming that we're calling for, white nationalism and an ethno-state and all of these things. And Kevin's got his picture in the New York Times, top of the fold, by the way, above the fold in the New York Times on that one, because he popped the flag out while I was throwing the hats. And why did I bring the rosary to CPAC? Why did I hold up the rosary there at a political rally? Why do we have it at and the media lost their minds, and Bill Maher was going crazy on me and everything else, and Joyless Reed was going off. It's very simple. It's because we were going directly to groups that have never, ever had anyone ask for their vote before.
Right.
We went to white men and said yes, and we made it fun. I remember White Boy Summer was about Miami, it was about South Beach, it was about having a good time, it's about yacht
college,
rock,
and after
and all the college guys, all the frat boys, all the bros totally got on board.
We had a dozen cookies, right? You buried the lead earlier, Jack. Remember the cookies we brought from Butler? We brought them in from
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. They were boutique bakery out in Butler area, and they had Donald Trump's face on them. We just brought him to the coffee and donuts after mass. You know what I
We'll
mean?
bring that to
Didn't
Mass,
really
yeah.
have to do much talking. I can't tell you. All the kids and their moms were like, "Can I have a cookie? Can I have a cookie?" Taking pictures and selfies with the cookie, giving them their kids. Like,
Right. So from a cultural perspective, and President Trump, you know, I think he keyed in on some of this, you know, us bringing the rosary everywhere and having it out. And I had it out on election night as well in my coverage with Charlie Kirk. That then after Butler, when that happened, you see not only Donald Trump directly embracing Christianity, but elevating symbols of Christianity and elevating elements of Christianity that are deeply Catholic.
Chris Macchio, he had the moment of silence at 6:11 p.m. sharp. They planned the entire event around that. I was up front at the railing with Jack, and the bells tolled. I said, "Oh, that's great. That's just 1, 2, 3." But no, Chris Macchio comes out
Is that the second Butler rally?
at the second Butler rally and does the Ave Maria live.
Yeah.
Having the live rendition
Amazing.
by an opera singer of the Ave Maria, and we were sitting 2 seats away from Corey Compatore's family. And
Wow.
I mean, it was obviously
true.
a very emotional day for them and everything that they went through. A family that deserves real answers, by the way, as to what happened that day at the first time of Butler. But you see President Trump saying, he had the 4 words, "It was God alone."
Yeah.
It was God alone that saved him that day. And just this outpouring of faith from him and going directly to, in a way that I know, by the way, I know there were some evangelicals that were upset with Trump and said, Trump needs to be more Christian. Trump needs to be more Christian. And then he starts playing the Ave Maria. And he starts putting up the St. Michael prayer. And they're saying, no, not like that.
Christian.
Not that. No. You know, people got a little heartburn over that one. And even on November 1st, putting out All Saints Day, you know, just a couple of days before the election. Again, the idea was showing respect to Catholic. Happy birthday, Mary.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Mary.
St. Michael the Archangel.
You know, just showing respect in a way that even
Feast of the Archangel.
Even Joe Biden, who
multiple times,
who has been a Catholic for 50 years of his public life, has never done things like that. Ever.
No. And it's remarkable how the voter, those little things that cost you nothing. You don't need to pay $10 million to Beyonce. Just putting up an image on Truth or Twitter of Our Lady of Guadalupe, how much excitement and relief and trust that puts in the hearts of certain people. Or just to tell, like you were talking about White Boy Summer, it's not about white supremacy. It's telling 18 to 25-year-old men who America and the liberals and the Democrats hate. They don't want your vote. They don't want you in college. They don't want you in the workplace, and saying, hey, you guys are cool. You have permission to have fun, white boys.
Yes.
You know,
because
just
we're
those
the
little
most
things,
prosperous, greatest nation in the world.
Yeah. And those little things kind of just put people at ease. Like you just feel a little bit more comfortable in the political realm just for someone to say, I see you. I like you. That's a big deal.
It's embracing,
and it costs you nothing.
Something with President Trump that's very interesting, that he actually embraces people's identities and he respects people's identities. So when he shows you that he respects you, it doesn't matter if you're a construction worker or a fry cook at McDonald's or a trash truck driver, that he will show you respect and show your identity respect. Anyway, I don't mean to get into identity, and it's not identity politics. Where in identity politics, they will talk about respecting their identity. They don't actually show it. They never show it.
Jack, you're talking about he finds dignity in the person is what you mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, he finds
exactly
dignity.
Right.
Yeah.
He finds dignity in that person. Whereas when the Democrats who talk so much about identity, that's all they do is they talk.
Right.
All they do is they'll talk and talk and talk and talk, but butter will be $7 a stick, and they don't care. They don't care because they're not the ones shopping it. They send Felipe to go and do the shopping and change the diapers and cut the lawns and all this. And by the way, I've seen so many people talking about, oh, who's going to watch my kids now when the housekeeping gets sent home. And it's like, okay, well, so you just admit it. So you're all admitting that's how you look at the situation.
Exactly.
It's not about what's best for them. It's about what's best for you, and it's about exploiting people and exploiting labor and exploiting the border and exploiting everyone, quite frankly. And what Trump does, and I'll put it this way, I'll just put it this way, I'll tell the story, that for me to be able to turn to my son and say, even if Trump hadn't won the presidency, but be able to turn to him and say, hey, look at this. You know, that as a Catholic dad, you know, that St. Michael prayer that we say every single night before we go to bed, Jack?
Yeah.
Look, Donald Trump just posted that prayer right here on his picture. And I showed him that. And you know what, Jack? He goes, let's go.
Based.
That's an easy way.
Raising your son based. Well,
he
I
loves
think
saying "let's go."
I want to wrap up here, but I think
By the way, I think someone said that "let's go" is Allah Akbar for white people.
Yes. I saw that. I saw you tweet that, and I put underneath, I was like, we need to upgrade to Deus Volt.
Deus Volt, yeah.
Deus Volt.
Well, no, Deus Volt. Deus Volt is Allah Akbar for Christians.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
That translates.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I think the most definitive moment in the campaign was McDonald's was cool. Garbage Man Trump was cool. There was some great moments in the campaign that stick out, but I think the moment was when a bullet grazed his ear and he went to the ground. And he came back up and said, fight, fight, fight. Joe Rogan points to that. I mean, so many people have pointed to that moment and said, this guy is built different. This guy is going all the way. He's going to stand back. For all he knows, more bullets are coming. He stands up and shakes his fist. You wrote the book Bulletproof. It's amazing. It's doing great. Tell us about the book Bulletproof.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And of course, I gave President Trump a copy of Bulletproof a couple of days before the election, and you know, he said he really appreciated it, and he encouraged people to buy it. And I thought it was so nice of him. I didn't even ask him to do that. I just wanted to give him a copy, and he said, "No, I want to do a little video." Actually, Charlie Kirk filmed the video of myself and Trump putting the story out about the book, and you know, he said, "How'd you write it so fast, anyway?" You know, I said, "Well, Mr. President, we started writing it almost immediately after, and we actually started writing it before he even left the hospital there in Butler, because myself and Joshua Lysek, who's just a fantastic writer, my co-author, that we realized that we had to do something. I mean, half the people in the crowd who were eyewitnesses were friends of mine that had just been at the rally. I almost went to that rally, and I just couldn't because of scheduling. I had people asking me to go. They say, "Hey, Pennsylvania, you're Mr. Pennsylvania, you should go." This book, though, and here's something that's very interesting. So people saw that President Trump just nominated Mike Waltz to be his national security advisor, non-confirmable position, so no Senate confirmation needed. So he'll be, if President Trump goes through with it, that he'll be the national security advisor. Mike Waltz was actually one of the individuals in Congress who was doing independent reporting on Butler, PA. And in fact, some of his reports are in the back of Bulletproof that people can see in full detail. So what this tells me is that President Trump is taking someone who was out front on the investigation into Butler, PA, and he just appointed them the national security advisor for the President of the United States. And so what people need to now look at this book, Bulletproof, is as a blueprint for the investigation to come. Because, okay, when we wrote this thing, we only had information on the outside. We put all the information we could in there. I've got information from sources within the FBI regarding these foreign email addresses that Thomas Matthew Crooks had that the FBI doesn't seem interested in get into. Well, guess what? Chris Wray already knows he's out. He's done. Day one, the guy who lied in front of Congress about shrapnel hitting the president, and that's what caused the blood across his face. Give me a break. We all saw the bullet. There are photos of the bullet, by the way, and there's no shrapnel. The teleprompters are fully intact, and you can see in all the pictures. Now, we know that was a bullet, and we know that he lied. So there are going to be consequences for that. The same way that there need to be consequences for every single member of law enforcement leadership. I'll say the leadership of law enforcement from the Secret Service and Homeland Security who failed to do their duty. And of course, the question still remains, was this a failure of duty, or was this intent? Was this intent for something like this to happen? And what myself and my co-author came to was this idea, this concept of intentional negligence. So intentional negligence doesn't mean, you're on the phone with somebody saying, hey, go up to this roof at this time. But what it does, how would it look like? Intentional negligence would be you deny resources, you deny expansion, you don't allow for counter sniper teams to come until the last minute, and those counter sniper teams aren't even given the opportunity to secure every building again and again, and outsourcing this stuff to local law enforcement and then not having a conversation with local law enforcement, not having the walkie-talkies, not having the right frequency. So this book is going to be a blueprint now for an investigation that will run in the new 47 administration into what actually happened that day, as well as on September 15th right here in West Palm Beach, where President Trump was almost killed a second time. By the way, that individual, Ryan Wesley Routh, his trial was supposed to start this week here in the Southern District of Florida, down in Miami, but it's been pushed back to February now. So that'll be something that we're looking at come February, that trial and his direct ties to Ukraine.
All right. Well, everybody get yourself a copy of Bulletproof if you want to get all the info on the 2 assassination attempts, correct? Both are in the book.
2.
Yeah.
Two that we know of.
2 that we know of. Exactly. And I want to thank Kevin for being on. Love Kev.
It's
love
great
to
be
see you.
on.
Love to see you in Florida.
Is this your debut on the?
This is the
Taylor
debut
Marshall
on
show?
Marshall
so.
Podcast.
I believe so.
We got to
I
do
think
it.
that means Kevin has to pick the prayer then.
Okay. What are we going to pray at
yes.
the end, Kevin?
Ave or Pater Noster?
Pater Noster.
Let's do the Pater Noster. I'm going to put the prayers on the screen so everybody can join with us. We're going to pray the Our Father in Latin, and we'll pray it. Why don't we, the 3 of us, pray it in sync? That sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Oremus nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Pater Noster,
Pater Noster,
qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. Nom Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, Poso bros, thanks for being on today. I know you guys pray your rosary every day. Hold them up. Hold up the weapons. Guys, pray your rosary every day. You're not on the team.
Pray for us.
You got to be on the team.
Play for us.
Pray the rosary every day. You're not on the team. And remember, our Lord Jesus Christ says you're the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So go out there and be salty. God bless, guys. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Dr. T.